I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. Rudy Giuliani just filed a completely absurd motion for reconsideration in federal court in Washington, D.C., in a case where he is being sued for defamation by Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who Giuliani just so despicably defamed and caused them to receive so many death threats with Giuliani's complete and utter lies. Rudy Giuliani previously informed the federal judge in connection with this defamation case that he was just too broke to participate in the discovery process. He couldn't fulfill his legal obligations because his documents, electronic documents, were being stored with this company and he owed them a lot of money, and he said he just didn't have the funds to pay them. Well, the federal judge in Washington, D.C., Judge Beryl Howell, said, well, then you need to submit a financial affidavit. List under penalty of perjury all of your assets, your financial condition, what money you expect to make, so the court can assess your financial condition if you say that you are too broke. Well, as the deadline was about to approach for Rudy Giuliani to submit this financial affidavit, guess what? Rudy Giuliani filed a motion for reconsideration and said he just came up with the money. In fact, he said that he now came up with $320,000 to pay this company that he owed all the money, and that now he's able to participate in discovery. And so he should not have to submit a financial affidavit anymore. Let's just go through what took place here, because it's just one bad faith act after another. So this is a federal lawsuit involving defamation by Rudy Giuliani and OAN and others against Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss settled with OAN, and so the last defendant in the case was Rudy Giuliani. Right around March 2023, we started getting closer to the discovery deadline when what's called fact discovery closes. And Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman's lawyer, who were already frequently updating the court on Rudy Giuliani's conduct and his dilatory tactics and obstruction, told the court, look, we are approaching these deadlines in this case. Rudy Giuliani is not submitting his documents. We need you, judge, to compel him to turn over these records. That set in motion various hearings that took place. And finally, on May 1st of 2023, Rudy Giuliani submitted this declaration where he said that he was just too broke, that the issue was he was poor and he could not participate in discovery. This is what he said in paragraph 5 of a declaration under penalty of perjury that he submitted to federal judge Beryl Howell. He writes, paragraph 5. The Trust Point 1 documents, that's the name of the electronic discovery vendor which held his documents after the Department of Justice executed a search warrant regarding its criminal investigations of Rudy Giuliani. So going back to paragraph 5, it says, the Trust Point 1 documents have now been archived. I have endured, and again, it's Giuliani writing this, I, Rudy Giuliani, have endured substantial fees and costs in connection with multiple litigations and investigations, and I could no longer afford to pay Trust Point 1 to keep the documents online. It would cost me over $320,000 to become current on my arrearage with Trust Point 1 and to have to access to the documents, as well as costs incurred in searching the documents again for additional files requested by plaintiffs other than the email files. I do not have the funds to pay the amount at this time. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Executed May 1st, 2023, Rudy Giuliani. So the court ordered Rudy Giuliani to again show up at court after he filed that declaration. And ultimately, a minute order was issued by Judge Beryl Howell on May 19th. And among other things, it requested that Rudy Giuliani provide a declaration listing all of the searches he's conducted, all of the devices he's used, so all of his cell phones and iPads and laptops and computers where discovery may be stored. But it also states by and here's part of the order that the judge issued, by May 30th, 2023, in order to evaluate defendant's claim of an inability to afford the cost of access to and search of the TrustPoint dataset, or to use a professional vendor either to access the original electronic devices seized from defendant by the FBI in April 2021 and returned to defendant, or alternatively to conduct a search of the archived TrustPoint dataset, defendant Rudy Giuliani is directed to produce to plaintiffs A, full and complete responses to plaintiffs' requests for financial information, and B, documentation to support his estimated costs for further searches on the TrustPoint dataset. So Rudy Giuliani was asked and requested by the court, demanded by the court, to provide his financial condition. And right before the deadline, Rudy Giuliani then filed this motion to reconsider the court's May 19th minute order, granting in part the motion to compel. And here is what Rudy Giuliani is now saying. On May 19, 2023, the court, in a minute order, granted in part plaintiffs, that's Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss's, motion to compel by ordering Giuliani, quote, in order to evaluate defendant's claim of an inability to afford the cost of access to and search of the TrustPoint dataset, or to use a professional vendor to produce documents, quote, to plaintiff's request for financial information and request for production numbers 40 and 41. However, the court at the hearing on the motion, the court stated the following. Now, if before May 30th, 2023, when Mr. Giuliani is required to provide the responses to request for production number 41 and 40 to the plaintiffs, if you are able to work out all the arrears with TrustPoint and able to perform full and complete searches on the TrustPoint dataset, you can ask me, you can come back to me and ask me to reconsider this requirement, this order. Rudy Giuliani in the motion goes on to say, as per Giuliani's declaration filed herewith, he has obtained funding to pay the arrearage with TrustPoint to allow for full and complete searches responsive to plaintiff's request for production. Therefore, Giuliani respectively requests the court to reconsider its ruling in this regard. It goes on to say, for all of the reasons discussed herein, the court should reconsider its prior ruling and deny the motion as to request for production numbers 40 and 41, unless and until it is necessary to prove up punitive damages. Alternatively, Giuliani requests the court grant him a reasonable time from the date the court denies this motion to reconsider to produce the documents. Giuliani also requests the court suspend any deadlines related to briefing regarding his inability to pay for TrustPoint or professional vendors. So obviously here, Rudy Giuliani does not want his financial condition to become available to plaintiffs. So he called in favors from someone or from a group of people to give him the money so that he could take this money and he could pay for the TrustPoint documents that he could then produce to the plaintiffs. Meanwhile, for months and months and months, Rudy Giuliani has engaged in these delay tactics. He has delayed the ability of justice to happen swiftly in this case. It is a play right out of Donald Trump's playbook here to delay this case from going to trial. And you see here now Rudy Giuliani saying he needs more time now that he's made these payments to now go through the documents. And what he wants to do is delay the trial date, delay all of the other things so that this case can be moved as far back as possible, or moved as far into the future as possible. The one thing that Rudy Giuliani talks about there regarding his financial condition is there will be discovery at some point in time if the jury awards punitive damages regarding Rudy Giuliani's financial condition, because part of the discovery there regarding the limits of punitive damages, you take into account an individual's kind of full net worth and the amount of money that they have. And so that is going to be something that Rudy Giuliani says, address it later. You don't don't need to address that right now. But the key questions that I have is, who all of a sudden in 24 hours before the deadline has given Rudy Giuliani $320,000? And now what do they expect in return for that? Rudy Giuliani is clearly terrified of showing his financial condition here and wants to wait and hide that as long as possible. But again, it's just how MAGA Republicans abuse our court system, how they try to delay things, the games that they play. Look, Judge Beryl Howell is a no-nonsense judge. She used to be the presiding judge in the D.C. federal courthouse over all of the criminal grand jury. She's made some very strong rulings about the crime fraud exception relating to Donald Trump. So she's someone who's not afraid to make a tough ruling. So let's see what she does in response to that. And of course, we will keep you updated here on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm Ben Meiselas. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers here. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And wherever you get audio podcasts, subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast as well. Have a great day and hit subscribe.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.